David, let me just start with what we just heard from Kelly. I took some calls on this earlier on. What's your take on everything that's going on here? Is it time for, in this particular case, McGill has actually reached out to provincial and federal authorities here, calling it a national security issue?
Well, I think we crossed the line several months ago, or almost 2 months ago, actually. Aaron, at some point, there's going to have to be a realization that the local government, the Plante administration, and there's evidence to that effect, Beauchemin, the anti-racism commissioner, being one of them, that this administration does not want the police to move in. Fadi Daguerre does not want to move in for several reasons. He told you, he told me, and the injunctions that were not granted previously by the courts, they relied on the fact that this was passive resistance and relied on some sort of extended theory of freedom of expression and a semi-public, semi-private area on the McGill campus, which is very much debatable. If now we're at a point where we've seen the behavior of these protesters, they've already violently occupied a building. They've already shown that their discourse is not a peaceful one, and now you have this escalation, as you mentioned, this clear escalation. The question becomes, if Valerie Plante and Fadi Daguerre doesn't want to move in, at this point, we're starting to talk, and I was listening to you, listening to the callers, aren't we? It's kind of the same language and the same level of discourse that we got to during the Ottawa occupation. Yeah. Is that at some point you have to act, and passive and treating this like this is somehow normal and acceptable is just not. These are beyond protesters. These are people that are talking about anti-Semitism, are promoting violence. Let's say it. This is promoting violence. When you're talking about whatever you call this, a summer camp or whatever, and you have as your literature on this people carrying guns and being masked. This is not democratic, peaceful discourse that our society can accept, period. And this has been the case since the beginning of this occupation. And so I think now, actually, François Legault, Aaron, called on the Montreal police to intervene several weeks ago. It begs the questions now. Can François Legault use this to actually send in the SQ? Because I don't think Justin Trudeau, based on what we saw during the Ottawa occupation, will have the guts and the fortitude to even try it unless some unfortunate, truly physically violent event happens, something unfortunate that nobody wants. But I'm wondering now if now it's really time for François Legault to maybe consider sending in the SQ here.
All right, David, as we said, nobody wants to see something violent happen.
No.
And sadly, I have the sense, and maybe you do as well, from having talked to Fadi Daguerre before, that's what it's going to take before police here locally.
Well, Fadi Daguerre is basing himself on he told me when I had him on the show a couple of weeks ago. He said, "Look, he is basing himself on the Oka Commission report back after the events of 1990. Remember the occupation at that time, and he's basing himself on criteria. And he says unless there is a truly violent event that happens, he will not intervene. And so he is staying put. And Valérie Plante's behavior throughout this crisis is clear. Her base and Projet Montréal is politically on the side of the protesters. There's no doubt there, in my opinion. And so at the end of the day, if unless McGill can use this and go back now with this change of facts, McGill could actually go back to the Superior Court and retry for provisional injunction, because this is a new set of facts here. So maybe what was not there and not sufficient for the court the last time around, maybe the criteria for provisional injunction can be met, and then it forces the police to intervene.
Okay.
But beyond that, maybe it's time for François Legault to actually act and get some actions behind those words he told us all a few weeks ago.
I want to move on from this to cover something else before I forget. I heard you on this week talking about immigration, and we know the latest, the diatribe coming from the provincial government, this blaming immigration for everything and anything, including the housing crisis.
Yeah.
Now, I had Jean-François Lisée on a couple of days ago, and I brought this up, and I said, and I've heard you talk about this before, the idea that this housing crisis outside of Montreal, right, where, yes, it's an issue, but immigration in the rest of Quebec, not that big a deal. How would this be blamed for that? I want you to hear what I asked and then what Jean-François Lisée said, and then get you to tell me what you think. Here you go. How do you look at smaller towns outside of Montreal that have virtually no immigration but having a housing crisis anyway?
Well, more and more have immigration. In Gaspésie, they have a housing crisis because there are so many immigrants coming to work in the windmill factory. The owner of the McDonald's in Val d'Or, who had to buy a house to make a dormitory for Northern African workers coming there. So it is connected.
David, is it connected, or are those just two anecdotal, questions?
It is not connected, and here's why. First of all, there is a long list, I don't have time to go into it, a long list of municipalities and towns across Quebec that have been in a housing crisis for years. Why? Because just like we talk about every week infrastructure deficits, investments in infrastructure not being done, we have not invested in housing. And the fact is we are collectively getting older. And so we keep, while our birth rate is coming down, immigration is maintaining our population. It's not really growing it that much. Now there is growth, but it's not at a frenetic pace. So the fact is that the stats and the facts, the core numbers are clear. The housing crisis, there is no data. And actually, Jean-François Lisée, when he has data to quote, he quotes it. When François Legault and the Legault government have data, they quote it. Funny, on this very question, no data. You know why? Because it doesn't exist. There's no direct link between immigration and housing crisis. There are other causes for the housing crisis than immigration. The second thing is that what's really funny about Jean-François Lisée's response is that the few cases he did quote, he said, well, it's because of workers. Here's the thing, Aaron. To keep the economy humming, and the fact is that right now, Quebec's economy is struggling compared to Ontario's and the rest of Canada's, because of productivity reasons. And the reason why we're not building enough housing, by the way, is because we are one of the least productive economies in North America. And that's factual, by the way. The idea is our companies are begging for the immigration levels to be maintained. They are begging it. All the economic lobbies. You can go down the list. Conseil du Patronat, Federation of Canadian Independent Business, Manufacturers Exporters, Fédération des Chambres de Commerce, all of them, unanimous. There's not one economic industry group in Quebec that says anything else than, please, Mr. Legault, keep immigration levels at the same level for foreign temporary workers, which is the majority of our foreign immigrants, of our immigration levels, the supposed 500,000 foreign temporary immigrants that we have. By the way, Aaron, that number is not even accurate because it takes into account asylum seekers, a majority of which leave Quebec now. And so the actual number is under 500,000. That was confirmed by Jacques Jedwa, by others. It's just not accurate to say that the housing crisis and the prices of houses is caused by immigration. The immigrants that are to be housed are housed because they come here to work. And we need those workers because if they're not there, our companies, our small and medium-sized businesses, which are the backbone of our economy, without them, there's no Quebec economy. If they don't have these workers, they close, they move, or they shut down part of their operations, and we lose out on the tax revenues we need to keep the healthcare system going and the education system going. The healthcare system is entering, as bad as things are right now, Aaron, we're entering the next 20 years, it's the tsunami because of the population getting older. The healthcare costs are going to explode. If we don't have the economy to back this up and to get the tax revenues we need to pay for the expanding healthcare system, it's going to implode. And right now, the birth rate, again, a factual number, went down last year to a record low of 1.38. The only reason why we kept the median age at 42, which is very old for a society, we kept it up because of immigration. And that's the only thing that's keeping this very, very fragile economy afloat. So it is false. False. It is. There's no data to say that it's because of immigration. If we had a decent birth rate and maintained the economy we have, we would be talking about a housing crisis. This is attacking people that do not vote, do not have a voice. This is far right rhetoric that is working in Europe, that is working for Donald Trump. This is about fear. This is about grievance politics. This is about a form of racism, just like Commentator said this week as well. He said this is François Legault going down this slippery slope because nothing else is working for him. So he's making these far-ranging statements. This is about the grand replacement theory that the far right is pushing in France and elsewhere, and it's working. And so this is nothing else than just fear-mongering and grievance politics.
And that's where we have to leave it. David, always appreciate it. Thank you so much.